But Brandon, let's move on to the next team, a team that we are not used to, much like Mark and I on the NFL side when we talked about the Packers second on the NFC North preview. We are usually not used to talking about this team and the next team so soon in podcasts. Usually it's, you know what, we're going to wait till the end. It'll be Louisville, followed by Florida State, followed by Clemson. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bam, and you end the podcast. But this year, Louisville and Florida State towards the front. We're taking a look at Florida State, who is next up in the standings for the Atlantic Division. I'm going to start this real easy. We have talked about before the whole Francois Blackman debate. You can check that up above Brandon's head. I want to ask you this to start this preview. What should Seminole fans, what should their expectations be with Willie Taggart's first year on campus? Jimbo Fisher out the door, Willie Taggart in the door in Tallahassee.
I think they should expect 8 to 9 wins. I think they should expect a better team this season. They had some problems last year. The injury to Francois was just the beginning. I think that defensively they were not good. Mm-hmm. They were bad. They gave up a lot of points. They had just a lot of games where they just didn't seem to be all there, really on both sides of the football, and they never clicked. And part of it too is you may need to put some of the blame on Jimbo Fisher. I think that as the season started to get away, I think the more and more he started to become less interested.
Out the door.
And I hate to say that because you don't want to believe that, but if you've ever left a job, I think that when you know that there's something better on the horizon possibly, and you want to be ahead, and you already know that if there's going to be an offer, and you know that there's going to be a number of teams that are going to come, that there's going to be a number of team and head coaching of job offers that are going to come available, someone's going to come for you, and you're going to take one of them. And that was where Jimbo Fisher was.
Once you're absent mentally, it's hard to reel that back in.
Yeah, it is. But I think that Willie Taggart is a good guy for this position. I think he comes from I think he has a nice background. He comes from a very up-tempo type of offensive style, which is good, which is different than the pro-style offense that Jimbo Fisher has run in the past. I think we've talked about this before. It's going to be better for the players. The offensive playbook is not going to be as in-depth, which doesn't mean it's not going to be as good. It just means it's going to be easier to grasp. So that's going to be good for the players. It's going to be good for the young guys, and it's going to be good for a guy like James Blackman, who might end up being the starting quarterback. So I know we already talked about quarterback, but I want to take a little bit of a step back.
It's a big discussion. Who's going to be starting?
I want to take a little bit of
a Francois?
A step back, and to my previous thoughts, it would be DeAndre Francois, and I believed he would be the better one. After looking at it a little bit more, analyzing some of the things, some of the film, some of the tape from last year, and just overall, I really think that James Blackman could get the starting nod. And I think that because you're looking at a DeAndre Francois who's not completely 100% healthy. He's a quarterback that is extremely athletic. But you also look on the other side, and you get James Blackman, who's 6'5", so his frame is already better than DeAndre Francois. He's lighter at 185. He's a skinny guy. I mean, you could blow him over with your breath. But if he can add some muscle, add some LBs, I think he's going to be just fine. Good velocity on his throws, tight spiral, good touch and accuracy, not only on the deep passes, but on the short crossing routes. That has a lot of touch. It has everything to do with touch, and that is very important. And he can do it on the run. Avoids defenders, can see over the top of defenders, makes it much easier. However, he could work on footwork, and like I said before, he needs to add some more muscle, he needs to add some more pounds. But this guy, I'm going to change my stance. I hate to be a flip-flopper, but Ricky, I know you're a flip-flopper, and people, some hate you, some don't, but that's okay. They can hate me or not hate me, but I think I would flip and say that Florida State moving forward, has a better opportunity with James Blackman at the helm because of his intangibles, because of his skills and his athleticism, and because right now, if you looked and you said, who's the true leader? Who's more of a true leader? How can you not say James Blackman with all the missteps off the field that Deondre Francois has gotten himself into?
To me, I'm going to take a little pivot and turn because for me, I'm not really... This is the one thing where I know back when we did the video on between the two of them that you can say you're good and you're bad. Blackman probably, like you said, more of the leader than Francois because of every choice that Francois has made so far. You look at it and go, what the hell are you thinking, man? What the hell are you thinking? But to me, I figure whichever quarterback Willie Taggart picks is going to be fine.
Yeah.
But to me, I look at a position that I was looking through some of the comments just now that we've got even from last year. When we did our video of can Deondre Francois bring the Florida State to the playoff, this player was mentioned. When we did our preview before last season, this player was mentioned. Hell, when we even did a Virginia Tech preview, this player was mentioned, and he was mentioned a ton when we did the will Deondre Francois be the starting quarterback this year for the Seminoles, and that's Cam Akers.
Yeah.
To me, Cam Akers needs to have, and I am going to highlight a comment here, and it's not highlighting a comment like, ooh, this guy was wrong, but it comes from Jalen Lang over a year ago when we did the video. I'm going to look up the exact title here. It was when we were talking about, can Deondre Francois help Florida State reach the playoffs in 2017? We recorded that video or posted that video May 4th of 2017. It has been a while since we posted that video. And Lang said, on top of that, they also have Cam Akers, who I like a lot, and I think he will have a huge season to help Francois and the Seminoles. You look at the stat sheet, he had a pretty good year. He had over 1,000 yards.
Broke a record.
He was running over 5 yards per carry and had 7 touchdowns. You want to know the bad part about that, though? I need to see more from Cam Akers. If this team to me is going to be a very successful team, like you said, 8 to 9 wins, Cam Akers needs to be, and I'm not talking numbers-wise, I'm just saying in general, he needs to be on the Heisman ballot. He needs to be so good, he is one of the top 5 in the Heisman running this year. That's what we need. We need Cam Akers to be the same nationally good as Dalvin Cook was for the Florida State Seminoles. That's what we need.
He can be. If you've looked at him, if you watched anything of him last season,
I'm not saying he can't.
He definitely can be. What I'm talking about is the Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook obviously ended up being great. He's with the Minnesota Vikings, was having a great season, got hurt. He'll have another great season this year, hopefully a full one. But Cam Akers can duplicate exactly what he did.
He can
absolutely do it.
He is the key piece because I look at this schedule, and the thing that bothers me most about this schedule are the road games. They're playing at Syracuse. Syracuse was a 2-win team in conference last year, but we just talked about Syracuse. We just talked about early on, could they get a little bit of a jump on Florida State? If Florida State ain't clicking right away, on the road, that could be a game that worries me. You play Louisville on the road. You're playing Miami, who will probably be a top 10 team this year, on the road. You're playing NC State on the road. You're playing a Notre Dame team on the road. Yeah, you get Florida State at home. Yeah, you get Clemson at home. But the two things that are worse about those matchups is, from any Florida and Florida State game, it don't matter where you play that game. And I could almost say the same thing for Miami and Florida State, but Miami this year will be so much on a different talent level than Florida State that it will make a difference where they play that game. And I look at all the road games that this team has, and right now, I would put a loss against Louisville I'd put a loss against Miami. I would put a loss against NC State. Notre Dame, I go, because I'm usually not that high on Notre Dame. I don't think they beat Clemson. I don't think they beat Florida. That is 5 games right there that I think are for sure losses. Then if they lose to a Notre Dame, they lose to a Virginia Tech. This could be a very different season than we're used to seeing for Florida State. They could get 8 wins, but I feel like if they get 8 or 9 wins, it's because they fought they put 110% into the season and fought through everything and fought through adversity. Because otherwise, I look this schedule in the face and it gives me every reason to think they're just going to get their teeth kicked in some of these games. And when I say teeth kicked in, I don't mean like blown out. I just mean they lost the game, which ends up being an L in the column, which at the end of the year, we're looking at W's and L's.
Well, the way that you put it was very dramatic and could happen, but I just don't know if that's all going to happen. I mean, again, you kind of put them, the very first game of the season is not going to be easy. Virginia Tech to start things off, even at home, is not easy. And then you go against, Sanford and Sons, week 2. That should be a win. Can't
really do it. I'm getting over a cold. I tried to do it, and I just couldn't do it.
On the road at Syracuse, Syracuse is an improved team, but I still think that Florida State is better. I think that should be a win. NIU, that should probably be a win. I'm personally, not right now at least, I'm not high on Louisville, even though it's on the road. That should be a win in my mind. Miami's going to be a tough game. It's just flat out going to be a tough game. It's going to, as long as the U is still good, it's going to be a tough game.
I'm putting that down as an L all day, every day.
Wake Forest, I would think it's a win, but look at what Wake Forest's offense was last year. Explosive. Very, very good. Clemson, they're always good. It could be a dogfight or it could be a blowout. I don't know. NC State, they were a great team last year on the road there. Could be a tough one. Notre Dame, it's always a toss-up. Are they going to suck or are they going to be great? You just never know. Boston College, and then Florida. Florida, I think right now, I personally
think Florida would be better this year with Dan Mullen.
But right now, I would give the edge to Florida State. Right now, I'd give the edge to Florida State.
I'd be on the other side. I have more faith, and this isn't going to be a Florida State-Florida debate here. It's just I have more faith in what Dan Mullen will make the team by the end of the year than I do Willie Taggart.
I'm just saying that you made it seem like it was a lot of doom and gloom.
It
for
could
Florida
be.
State, but I don't think it's going to be as doom and gloom. I'm not saying that they're going to be I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but I am saying that they're going to be an improved team to 8 to possibly 9 wins. So I'm not saying that they're going to be just jumping up and to this extreme, like they're going to win 10 games. But
let's be honest,
this team has got to be better than last year.
And let's be honest, like you look at it and you go, all right, 8 to 9 wins. It shouldn't be that much of a stretch. This is a team that, although they finished near the bottom in the ACC, they were a 7-win team last year. But their wins, you got to look at who they came against. They came against the Wake Forest team. That one was on the road, so that's another reason why I didn't bring up Wake Forest. I think that Florida State can beat them. But you look at it, Syracuse was not that good of a team to me. Yeah, you beat Clemson, but you played up for that game. They beat Delaware State, where it's like, really? You beat Delaware State? Who gives a crap? You beat Florida on the road. Florida was barely a football team last year, kicking McWayne out of town by that point. And then Louisiana Monroe. You should win that game, no problem. Oh, and one of those 7 wins was your bowl game against Southern Miss. Last time I checked, Brett Favre is not lacing it up for Southern Miss anymore. That is an old reference, but that is how long Southern Miss has been relevant in my mind. I look at their wins last year. They came against easy teams. Yeah, the teams differ this year. Like we said, no Lamar Jackson for Louisville, but you couldn't beat NC State at home. Now you get them on the road. You couldn't beat Louisville at home. Now you get them on the road. Hell, you couldn't beat Clemson on the road. Now you get them at home. And the thing about Clemson, we'll get to at the end of this podcast, is they've got one of the best defenses that they might have in years, and you got to play them this year. So this year I feel like Florida State, they might be a better team when it comes to like on paper, but in the wins and losses, I think because of how the schedule plays out, they did play Miami last year. They played them at home and they lost only by 4 points. Now put that game in Miami with a Miami team, to me, that these teams are going in the opposite direction when it comes to talent on the field and coaches on the sideline, because Mark Richt and Jimbo Fisher were right up there even. I'm putting Mark Richt way above Willie Taggart right now when it comes to 1v1.
Willie a little bit of credit.
I'm sorry, 1v1 in a football game, I'm going to pick Mark Richt's team over Willie Taggart's team.
So all I'm saying is that, yeah, I think that the schedule has gotten more difficult this year for Florida State. Anyone who looks at this year's schedule and last year's schedule is going to say that this year's schedule, I think, is more difficult.
Or is it easy? It's easier just because you don't have Alabama on the schedule.
No, I think it's more. I think it's more difficult this year, where the games are placed and when they are and everything like that. I also think, though, that Florida State is better this season. They will be better this season. You hope that you're always hoping that you're going to be able to avoid injuries, but that is just not actually physically possible when you're out there just crushing against each other while you're out there. On every single play, somebody on your team is going to get injured. It's just going to happen. But if you can stay away from the big injuries, if you can stay away from the key injuries, Florida State is going to be a team that is going to be improved, that's going to be better. Again, I'm not saying and I'm not predicting for them 10 wins or a playoff, but I would be predicting 8 or 9 wins in a bowl game. I definitely think that is doable and quite possible. And it's because of the fact that, okay, you say whoever's going to be back there at quarterback. Yeah, DeAndre Francois had a really good season in his first year. James Blackman, he didn't do bad, but it was also overshadowed by they just had a crappy season. I think he ended out the year well, winning the last, 4 or 5 games for him, but they just overall didn't play well. And it was the first, the early games and everything like that. Well, you had to get used to it. You've got Cam Akers. Your wide receiving core, you return 2 guys that had more than 6 catches last season. It's not necessarily promising, but you have to work with it. But it's your offensive line is where that's going to be the question. In the last 2 seasons, they've allowed 32 and 36 sacks respectively. That sucks. No one back there can feel comfortable. Thankfully, you've got 2 guys who can run, but with one of them not being 100%. So this Florida State team is better. They will be better. Defensively, they lose a couple of guys. Defensively, they lose 3 of their starting linebackers. So that's going to be tough. But they return a lot of talent. They return a lot of experience in the secondary and in spots like that. They'll be all right. They just can't run into the injury bug. They cannot do it. They saw what happened last year when they did it, and it was not fun. So keeping guys healthy and having consistency across the board is what's going to help this team. And I do have confidence in Willie Taggart. I think that, no, is he a Nick Saban type of coach? I am not saying that. But I'm also don't want to put him down and just step on the guy and say, how you doing down there, Willie? But this guy is going to be a solid football coach for a team that I think is ready and was ready for a fresh start and a new beginning. And that's what they're getting.
To me, this year, I see the win range for the Seminoles being between 5 to 8. But more realistically, I'm going to say 6 or 7 is where I sit. And that's before bowl game.
Okay.
So at the very best, I could see them getting 8 regular season wins, but realistically, I don't. I could see them being as bad as 5 regular season wins, but I just don't think they'll be that bad. I think they will be 6-6 or 7-5 heading into their bowl game. And that's what I think Florida State will be this year. And when it comes to the whole Willie Taggart part of it, I look at last year where last year Willie Taggart goes to an Oregon team. What does he do? 7-5, 4-5 in the conference. It's a different ball game coaching from Western Kentucky and South Florida to coming up and, I'm going to say, coaching with the big boys, to where Willie Taggart's only had really 1 year of experience coaching in the Power Five. And when we think about the Power Fives, maybe it's just you and I, maybe other people think differently. But when I think about the Power Fives, what's usually the conference right now that I rank the lowest of the five?
The Pac-12.
The Pac-12, and that's where he's coming from, where the ACC is probably maybe 2 or 3. Depending on who it is, I think that the top 3 is SEC, Big 12, ACC, and some may even throw the Big 10 in there, depending on who it is. I think the Big 10 might be a little bit more towards 4 right now, but they're leaps and bounds to me over the Pac-12. So you're going to be playing higher competition than you did at Oregon. I think this team quarterback is going to be a big question. Which one do you go with, and do they make the right choice there? Cam Akers, can you lean on him? Can he be better than he was last year? And then ultimately with the schedule, how do you play? And I'm going to call it the death lineup with those road games, because only a few, if you had a few of them that were flipped to home games, I'd be like, all right, we can do this. We can steal. We can win a couple of those. These 2 at home, I can sleep better at night. But as a Florida State fan, I wouldn't be sleeping easy this season, because I would feel like it's going to be a year where it's like, man, we won 7 games, but it didn't really feel like a good season. Like, that's how I could really see this season playing out for FSU.
Well, Willie Taggart, when he started in his first season at Western Kentucky, went 2-10.
He's not going to go 2-10, I'll tell you
well,
that.
I'm just telling. First season at Western Kentucky, 2-10. First season at South Florida, 2-10. First season at Oregon, 7-5. So at the very worst, they should win as many games as they did last year, and that was a bad FSU team last year. You have what should be an improved FSU team this season with, in my mind, a more difficult schedule. So at the very worst, you should be no worse than what you were last year. That's how I would look at that.
Another thing with Willie Taggart that doesn't sit well with me coming into Florida State is just the teams that he lost to while at Oregon. Never beat, when he went up against a ranked team, never beat a ranked team. Washington State, Stanford, Washington, even Boise State in their bowl game in Las Vegas. And it's like the teams that he did beat, Utah probably being the best one to me. The other one's Arizona, Oregon State, Cal, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Southern Utah. In order to be successful in the ACC, you are going to have to get statement wins, and your team is no longer second in the pecking order right behind Clemson. You're going to have to beat Louisville. You're going to have to beat NC State. Hell, you're even going to have to beat Notre Dame and maybe even a Virginia Tech. Clemson and Miami, to me, are for sure losses, and I feel like, can he win those big games against those big teams who are probably going to be ranked higher than Florida State when the 2 teams meet? Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Just to go off of what you just said, he's working now with completely different talent, completely different guys. I mean, I don't think he had a Cam Akers when he was over at Oregon.
No.
You know, he's got a young quarterback. Well, he's got 2 pretty young quarterbacks who both just have 1 season under their belt. So he's coming into it's a completely new ball game. It's a completely new ball game. While it might be a little bit more difficult, I think he's probably set up better for it.
And the one thing I will say is only because I just looked it up, I will debate the Cam Akers part, because he did have Royce Freeman, who was an 1,000-yard rusher and had 16 touchdowns for the Ducks last year. Quality running back, I will say that.
But it's not Cam Akers.
But it has not been.
But it's not Cam Akers.
Technically, he had better numbers than Cam Akers.
Ricky, just shut up and take us out.
But really, it's
and take us out?
It's the Oregon offense. It's how they run their thing.
Well, let's just be honest. I forgot that Royce Freeman was there.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, he's been there for what, 20 years now?
Yeah,
now that he finally left, he was there for 20 years.
Yeah, he's like all the guys that go on to, what was it,
Like
for Kansas basketball.
It's
like they never leave. What's his name? Like Perry or something like that. Dude would never leave. He was there for 15 years.
Kind of like, wasn't Mikhailuk there for a while? I don't know. Svi Mikhailuk. That's a question we asked Pat. Pat's our resident Kansas guy. But you guys let us know what you think down below about Florida State this year. How are they going to be? Are they going to be really good? Are they going to be really bad? Are they going to be in the middle? Am I too low on Willie Taggart? Is Brandon right? And I should be a little bit higher on the tag man. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section.